You would think that the best houses are the ones with unlimited budgets where architects can just go crazy. But that's not necessarily the case. I've been practicing architecture for the past 15 years and I can tell you that the boldest architectural ideas do not come from freedom, but they're actually born from constraints. Time, budgets, regulations. These constraints force clarity, which ignites creativity. Take the Latapie house, which I showed in my last video. In that project, Lacaton and Vassal were faced with an impossibly small budget. But that limitation actually became the strength of the project. They sought ways to address the client's problems within the means the client had. A simple greenhouse doubled the space of the house. It wasn't luxury, it was ingenuity. The same can be said in a relative way for the projects I've been showing from Arquitectes. They shine because of their humility, not their extravagance. But that ingenuity I'm talking about comes from understanding the stakes at play and what can be negotiated. The solution wasn't, oh, we're going to build something cheap because that's the budget we have. No, the solution was, okay, what can we sacrifice in order to compensate our lack of budget? So in the case of the Latapie house, what was sacrificed was more comfortable conditions throughout the year. I would imagine that all stakeholders involved understood that the greenhouse was sometimes going to overheat and sometimes was going to just be too cold. For those instances, you would always have the proper house to which you could retreat. But without this concession, the Latapie house would have never come to be. And at the same time, that possibility of retreating back to an insulated and thermally conditioned space is what makes that greenhouse space so appropriate, because you always have the possibility of moving from one space to the other. Now, of course, having an unlimited budget helps. It removes a very stressful constraint. I know from experience. But there are many other constraints with which one can work. Take the case of Koolhaas's house in Bordeaux. In this case, the constraints were clearly not budgetary, but the constraints in this case came from the client's reduced mobility. It's there in this aspect where the architects let their creativity thrive, ignoring in this case the budget, as you could probably imagine. Similarly, RCR Casa Horizonte has nothing to do with budgetary constraints. In this case, the question was elsewhere. They were stretching the house along an axis while at the same time dealing with the steep slope of the site. Another clear example of not dealing with the budget is Johnston Markley's fabulous house in California. Here, again, the question was elsewhere. It was positioned rather than framing a view, like we just saw in Casa Horizonte. Here they are filtering that view because they want every space that they're creating have a glimpse of that wonderful view towards the ocean. So constraints are clearly not the enemy. They are the starting point. And sustainability should be seen in the same light, not as a box-ticking exercise, but as an opportunity to be creative. And these aspects of sustainability should be integrated into the design brief, along with the budget and other similar constraints. I believe that this is the way we can design buildings which are smarter and integrate better into their environment. Every limiting factor in a design can be a lever if we choose to view it that way. In my experience, constraints really become a problem when we don't embrace them and we don't integrate them into the design. We tend to focus on the budget because that's the constraint that we can all relate to. But the way around it is quite simple. Design with it. Integrate this as a constraint and make sure your design shows where the money is going. And to paraphrase someone much smarter than I am, it's better to use a budget within a small area than to spread it thin throughout a larger one. Koolhaas's house, okay. Okay, steep slope of the site. Oh, tutto frío, che.